Hey, everybody, welcome back to the 101st episode of Taps and Patience. I am here with Harrison from Precision Ingenuity. I am AJ from Audacity Micro, and we are listened to by our Patreons live on Discord for the very first time. They're not participating, sorry, Patreons, but they are watching us live, and they can participate by chat.
Yeah.
That killed my intro. Hi, Harrison. I don't remember what I say from here on. What do I normally say?
Like,
Is that
how's
it?
this week? How's this
Yeah,
week going?
how's this week going? Or
Yeah.
really the last couple weeks, because we've kind of been bad about recording.
Yeah. It's been the last 2 weeks or so. I have felt like I've been in the fetal position while a group of people have been kicking me viciously, and I've just been crying. So, but things are finally coming back around, and it's good. So, like, to put things in perspective of just like a small sampling of how bad things have been here recently. Like, before I had like my Doosan had the spindle and then my laser and then the fridge, and I had all these other little problems. Well, over the last week and a half or so, I realigned my 5-axis like once 3 to 4 months ago, and I've realigned it 3 or 4 times in the last week or two.
Wow.
And
are you doing something you shouldn't be, or like what's happening?
So it all started with basically, was it last week or was it 2 weeks ago? I can't remember. I think it was 2 weeks ago. We had this huge deadline we were trying to hit, and my wife had a graduation she was going to go to, and in a different state, and I agreed to go with her, and it was like a 4 or 5 hour drive from here, and we had a major due date the next day, and we were working furiously, me and Weston, trying to get everything done. And I had these big stainless steel parts that I was going to run on the 5-axis, and I ended up breaking a tool and shifting the 5-axis right before I left. And it was really stressful because I was working till like 9 o'clock at the shop, and then I went home and packed and hit the road and didn't get to the hotel till like midnight or 1 a.m. And then we had to head out at got a hotel halfway. Anyways, it was just really stressful. And then when I got back, I got it all lined somewhat, like not as good as I'd like, but good enough to get some of the lower tolerance parts done. And then that method didn't work. That alignment, for whatever reasons, failed. And when the rotary was in like 3 or 4 of the main positions I use, it was decent. But then if it rotated 180 in one direction, it was off by like 20 thou or something.
Wow.
Or 10 thou. It was something stupid. And I was just like, what in the world is going on? And so I had to break it down from there. And then I got it all put back together. And I had to take the Lang plate off and like redo it from the ground up. And then I got it close, and then Weston was running it, and an end mill broke, and he didn't find it in the machine, and so he just replaced it and kept running, and it got wedged underneath the part on the very last deburr cycle, or not under the part, under the trunnion, and so the trunnion stopped in the A axis, like middle part. It was literally like an inch away from finishing the part, like of actual machine distance. And the A was tilting up, and the spindle was, or I forget exactly what it was, but it basically stopped, and the spindle went down and just trashed my part and moved the spindle and gouged the crap out of my table because the end mill got wedged between the trunnion and the table, and it just gouged the crap out of that. And so then I had to try to realign it from there, and I got it close. And then something else happened, and I got it realigned, and then anyways, I ended up doing it like 4 or 5 times, and the last one that I got done is probably one of the best alignments I've ever done, just because I had a lot of practice at this point.
Yeah.
And so it's still really good today. But the first parts after the last alignment that I ran, I ran deburring on all the sides. And normally, whenever I'm looking at a part after I've run it on the 5-axis, especially on the chamfers, when you're looking around, you can see, okay, the chamfer's getting a little thin here, a little thick there. And I took these parts off, and I stared at them for 10 minutes because I could not find any chamfer that looked larger or smaller than any other chamfer. And then there was operations where I was going through it, like I had a slot in the part, and like I could look at the slot from both sides, and it was like dead on. And so I've just been like, don't break the 5-axis. It's perfect right now.
Yeah.
Kind of. So, anyways, needless to say, since about Thursday last week, it's like I've hit all of the bad jujus over like the last 3 weeks for like the rest of the year, I hope, because like since last Thursday to today, everything has just been going smooth as butter. We've been knocking out, like today I did 7 unique parts through, and 5 of them were 5-axis parts. And I got them all through the machine. And I had one part that I had to remake part way because I wasn't holding it very good in the vise for the final op. It was too weak.
Nice.
So it was just like it's been so stressful, but the last few days have been finally coming back around. So anyways, I'm trying to keep up with the chat some, but my phone keeps going down.
And they're not really saying much right now.
Yeah. But anyways, so that's kind of what's been going on in my world. We have a big push till the end of November. And then today I just got an order for over 300 more parts the next week after that. So
nice. Like first week of December?
Like first week of December. So we're kind of stressed about trying to get all that done. Weston's going to be gone all next week. So, and we have a lot of orders due next week. So it's going to be like, I'm going to be really stressed out until all of these orders are done. So, but yeah.
I am going to try to push for the next month and a half to make sure I can take the week off, like probably between Christmas and New Year's, or maybe, like 3 days before Christmas and 3 days after or something.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be nice both for me and my family to get that week off. So
Weston said, as soon as we're done with these orders, he's like, we're done for the year. Like, like we've got all the work. We're done. We're done for the year. Like, we don't want to accept anything else. Let's just finish this out. Have a week or two to kind of recuperate and then hit the next year strong.
And I mean, yeah, there's definitely something to be said for taking some downtime, sweeping your shop, cleaning out some corners that you've been missing because you've been in a rush. And
yeah, it's been a lot. What's been going on in your world? You've had a lot of changes here recently as well.
I have had a lot of changes here recently, including some today that I don't think you know about yet.
Oh.
So to start with, the Tormach is here and running and making parts. Maybe not right this instance, it's not making parts, but it is operational. I have already shipped a job that came off of it. That job was a nightmare, but not because of the machine. We'll get to that in a second. But just today, I think I really finally got the machine dialed in to really start rocking production.
Nice.
The probe that showed up on the machine, actually, to be specific, the receiver that showed up with the machine was dead on arrival. It wasn't talking to the controller for some reason, so Tormach sent me a new one. And I just got that installed today and got, dialed in the run out on the probe and, dialed in the parallelism on the tool setter and use my master tool. Like, that's a whole process that takes a couple hours to set up the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was having some weird inconsistencies with the tool setter that like me and Tormach were not able to explain. And just today I was looking at it and I like redid the whole alignment, and like right after doing the alignment was off again immediately. And it's like, that's not right. And I was, had my head underneath it and I was looking under there and there was like 2 screws loose. Like the screws that hold the disc on were just loose, and I tightened those up. And now that thing's like rock solid.
Okay. I did notice your your tool changer close, or like extend and close, retract on that one on the video I watched was hitting really hard. There's
I
some air
also fixed
valves.
that. Yep.
Oh, okay, good,
That was another
good.
thing I did. So yeah, just kind of those like adjustment things I think are just
Hmm.
about done now. I have a Saunders plate on the way for it,
Ooh.
which was not originally what I planned on doing with that machine. I was going to use this guy, well, or the pneumatic version of this. The
Hmm.
order I placed for the, and for those of you who are listening and not watching, this was a Rolla pallet system. This is the small one that I'm holding here, but I had ordered a larger pneumatic one, and I had ordered it from like a somewhat sketchy website. It's
Hmm.
one that someone else has gotten some cheap Aroa stuff from before. And I ordered a whole bunch of the pull studs and the pneumatic base. And after waiting like a week and a half and heard nothing, I sent them an email and they're like, oh, yeah, we couldn't find it. So I do not have a pneumatic Aroa base on the way yet, like I thought I did.
They couldn't find it, but could they find the charge? Did they charge you?
I should double check that to see if they gave me a refund. They said they would. I need to double check that.
Okay.
And I still want them to ship the pull studs because I do want those.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll follow up with that. It's kind of been busy since then, and I haven't gotten around to it. But I got a message on Instagram from Saunders because I had done a story that was like, this would be my first machine without the Saunders plate. And he was like,
Mm.
let's get you hooked up. And so he gave me a heck of a deal on a plate. So
Nice.
I have a plate coming for that machine, and that'll keep me tied over until I get my Aroa system set up. Plus, I really do like the Saunders plates.
Yeah.
All
I've
of my
been
work
missing mine.
all of my work holding right now is Saunders, like,
Hmm.
or like even those little Chinese import vices I have, those are
Hmm.
on Saunders bases.
Hmm.
And then I just drew up a adapter for this thing so I can put this on either machine when that's done. And then also, I just really like them for protecting your table. I feel like it kind of helps the machine value over time. It's like a screen protector for your machine. Because you
Yeah.
take it off and like if you always have a Saunders plate in there, you're never going to ding up your table at all. And so then when you go
Yeah.
to sell your machine, you're like, look, it's pristine.
Yep. Yep.
So as long as you make sure it doesn't rust, but you can Scotch
Yeah.
tape that out.
I was gonna say that's about the only thing that I would complain about is that you really need to do a really good job of putting something down to keep it from rusting out. And I think our problem was with the Tormach table that we had the first time is we got the unanodized Saunders
Yep.
plates,
Those are far
and
worse.
those are far worse. So, um, and I've been thinking here recently that there are I don't miss the Saunders plate. I'd say 80 to 90% of the time, but there are some parts that come in that it's just like there's nothing better than having that Saunders plate. So like I do miss it
I would have
for some
used it on
very
this
key.
very first job.
Yeah. So.
Which then leads into the job that was a nightmare.
Hmm.
And the one reliable thing throughout the job was the Tormach. The Tormach just ran. I did not have
Yeah.
a single problem with the machine itself. Except at one point I did leave the window open when I started a part, and that got really messy really fast. But
Hmm.
other than leaving the window open, the machine just ran. And it's like the most forgiving machine on speeds and feeds I've ever run into. Like, you can run it really slow and it's fine. You can run it really aggressively and it's fine. The machine just
So
does not care.
so what about? I mean, I guess that kind of plays into what's kind of your initial impressions, and especially compared to running. You got to think back, but running the 1100 versus the this one, have you like seen some pretty big differences?
There is like comparing the 1100 to the 1500 is not fair. Like, it is an apples to oranges comparison. They are completely different machines that are
Hmm.
like worlds apart. The basically every single problem with the 1100 is fixed with the 1500.
Gotcha.
The the amount of power is way better. The rigidity is a just complete world of difference. I mean, the spindle is probably 4 times the size at a minimum. The casting on this thing is a monster. At its base, it's like 3 feet wide and a foot thick. Now it's epoxy granite, not cast iron. But the 1100 was a tube, right? Like a steel tube, or maybe a cast iron tube.
It was a cast iron tube, I think. But it was hollow on the inside for sure.
But it was hollow, yeah. And this thing is just like solid.
I think it weighed 1,200 pounds.
And so like cast iron as opposed to epoxy granite.
Yeah. So, and then this one it was like 6,000 pounds, and that's not with everything on it, right? It's over 6,000 once everything's.
No, it is not 6,000 pounds.
Oh, it's not. I thought, how much is
the naked machine? The naked machine is 2,500 pounds. So it's still light. Like it's not.
Yeah.
Like it's not a VF2. It's still smaller than a VF2. But
is that what the limit of the lift gates? I thought for some reason I was thinking lift gates could do 6,000 pounds, but maybe not.
No, I don't know what the lift gate limit is. I can tell you it's like 10% less than the machine. I don't know if you saw that video. Getting it off the truck on the lift gate was terrifying and super sketchy. And I would say just because you can do it and the shipping company would let you, I think it is a safety risk both to people and the machine. And I strongly, strongly recommend against doing it on a lift gate. It is not worth the $500 of not renting a forklift.
Yep.
So I need to email Tormach about that and be like, you do not want your customers doing this. Somebody is going to die.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
that's how it is.
Anyway, going back to those parts. If you want to learn about the Tormach installation, I have a video on it. Podcast listeners, like there really wasn't that much notable other than it was really difficult to get off the truck and very scary. And discussing it in the podcast will not do it justice. You'll need to watch the video.
Yep.
But in terms of those first parts, so I had many learning experiences in the course of the first parts.
Okay.
If you count opportunity costs, I lost $3,200 on these parts.
Oh, man.
If you don't count opportunity costs, I lost $200 on these parts. But I had to cancel a job because I knew that I was not going to get to it.
Oh, man.
But they're simplest parts I think I have ever made, or that was the theory. It kind of looked like a Folgers can lid, like except solid. Like Folgers can lids, like they have a little lip and then they're thin plastic, but it was like solid, or a manhole cover. Like it, not a complicated part. But the first time, my first plan A, was very classic AJ. Buy material, face off the bottom, super glue, work holding, do them in one up. I still think that could have worked, except one, I ran out of the right glue again because I was using a lot more because the parts were bigger. But that wasn't the bigger problem. The bigger problem is when I was doing an op zero to face off the backside. This was the first time that I have used a 6-inch vise outside of like a Bridgeport. And I squeezed the parts too much and they bowed. And that just murdered my flatness tolerance.
Did you run an indicator on it while you were tightening?
No. And of course I, ran a bunch of those parts, flattening them off before, doing the other sides and realizing this. But that was also kind of camouflaged by the fact that I was also having tool pull-out issues.
Oh.
And that was just like not something that I was used, like on my office mill and on the 1100, you can run an ER16 collet with a 3/8 inch tool as hard as the machine will allow, and you will never have pull-out issues because the machines just don't have enough power to deal like the tool, the collet to win over the power of the machine. That is not true on this machine. And all I had at the time was ER16 collets. And so the 3/8 inch tool that I was using for roughing was slowly pulling out. And I didn't have the tool setter set up at this point. I didn't have tool breakage detection. And so it kind of took me a while to figure out like why thicknesses were coming out off. And like it was very subtle. I mean, it was a couple thou at a time. And so this was happening at the same time as the bowing. And so those two issues were like, there was two problems. And then on top of that, like I said, I had run out of the good super glue. And so like I was trying some of the other super glue solutions, and I was having issues with the parts coming loose. And so I had like three problems I was fighting all at the same time. And so it kind of took me a while to figure out what was going on.
Yep.
And so I then moved to a thicker material, and these parts they're bigger than 6 inches, and I didn't have soft jaws for this vise yet anyway. And so I made a pocket fixture that these sit down into. Mm-hmm. And like they have set screws that held them from the side. And
yeah,
you had a thought there.
Well, I was just going to say, if you're going to keep running parts like that, I think you need a Saunders plate. Huh? Never again. You need a Saunders, or you're not a Saunders plate, Pearson plate, a Pearson vacuum plate to be able to hold those down, but to flatten them instead of doing the super glue method. It'd be a lot faster and a lot easier, I think.
If I had a Pearson plate, it would have been fine, or a vacuum plate, it would have been fine. If I had my fixture plate in mod vices, I could have done it in mod vices, and it would have been fine because I'm familiar with the amount of force I need to put on mod vices, and I could have used mod vice soft jaws. So again, if I had either of those, it would have been fine. But like, as weird as it sounds, this is my first time ever having a 6-inch vise on a real machine doing real work.
Yeah, you can put a lot of force into those vices. A lot of force.
I'll tell you.
So they're real easy to bow parts if you are not used to using them. So
then I got thicker material and changed my fixture up. And at this point I had not figured out that the material, or I'm trying to think of the order of operations. Anyway, even then when I put it in the fixture, I was still having weird issues. And it took me a while to realize that little fixture I had made, which was just being held in my vise, it had moved on me at one point when I think a tool broke or something.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's when I figured out that's right. So I broke a tool because it pulled out. And that is when I realized that I was having tool pull out issues as well.
Yeah.
And it moved the fixture moved on me. But then finally, after I figured out all of those things, I switched to a high feed strategy where I was only taking like a 20 depth of cut and like it was probably almost 300 thou width of cut with a 3/8 inch end mill.
Yeah.
I finally started getting good parts. But this literally took me like a week.
What is the max cutting rate on the new Tormach?
No idea.
Oh, okay. I know the Rapids are like 4 times faster than the 1100.
It's fast.
Yeah, isn't it like over 1,000 inches a minute? Rapids?
I don't know, but it's fast.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool.
So, anyway, this project that I probably literally could have done in a day. If I had to do it again, I could probably take me a day. It took me a week, and I ended up buying way too much material.
Yeah. It's part of the learning experience with the new machine. I mean, it's good you took something so simple, because you're bound to have those learning curves. So,
I had to buy a new pair of calipers for it because I have 6-inch calipers, and the part was about 8 inches.
Yeah. Was that Go ahead.
I was just gonna say the part was a good wake-up call to stick to my convictions of making small stuff.
Yeah. I think you could make a little bit bigger.
I will go a little bit bigger, especially thicker. I'll probably stick by my 6-inch by 6-inch rule. But now that I have a machine that's more willing to do longer stick out tools, I'll take thicker parts.
That's what I would say. I would say thin parts are the death of like everything that I enjoy in general.
Well,
just
because parts are where I make my money, is because I've got that super glue system down. As long as I'm not trying to do 8-inch discs where I'm hogging off 1/2 inch of steel. But
yeah, but I mean, like, you can do thin, flat, small, but you can't do thin, flat, large. But you can do normal size parts that are not thin and flat, that are like,
Yes.
the size that you could fit in a 6-inch vise comfortably. Like you could fit a 5-inch, 6-inch part that's you don't have to worry about warpage, and I think it'd be great. So, and you wouldn't want to do that in the OM
Yeah.
of that size. So, I was going to say, how do you like using a vise for the first time? But like
I hate
a
it.
real,
I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. Never again.
but you did that with the wrong part. So
Yeah.
that's not really fair to the vise.
Well, I mean, I it wasn't the part's fault. It wasn't the vice's fault. Like this was just like me stepping out into a different domain that I'm not familiar with.
Yeah.
And it's a much more common domain for, most people listening to this podcast. Like the stuff I do is weird to them, but this stuff is weird to me.
Yeah.
Like you would have nailed this first time, no problem. But it's just, I don't know. I'm like, the tool's bigger than the 16th of an inch. What do I do?
Yeah. Oh man.
But holy cow, does that machine make chips? That's another thing where I'm like, I need a better system for this. I think I
Yeah.
have one trash can that I've been filling up with chips for like a month on
Mhm.
the office mill. And like that filled up, and I looked around and I grabbed a different trash can and I filled that up. And I was like, well, I have some really sturdy contractor bags. And so then I filled up 2 of those.
Yep.
And this was like in a day and a half or something.
Yep.
So like I don't know. What do you do with chips? Like,
So I have 3 255-gallon totes outside that I do aluminum, stainless, and steel in. And I've been dumping at least one tote every month, probably.
how do you dump them though? Like, do you have the company come out and pick them up, or
We have a forklift, and I just load them into the
oh,
truck and
I
take them.
forget. I don't have a
Yeah.
forklift.
So we have a forklift. I mean, one day, and I think I told you about this day, we did some massive UHMW parts, and I filled up 3 trash cans full of chips. And with the plastic chips, we just throw them into the dumpster. So we also have a
Yeah.
dumpster. So I have the
Oh, I
trash.
don't.
I have an actual dumpster, and I have large recycle bins that we fill up.
I have one of those like 72-gallon trash cans or whatever they are for the shop, and that's it.
So
That gets taken out once a week.
you have a pickup truck.
I do have a pickup truck.
So for you, what I would probably recommend is kind of like what we were doing before all of this, which is we bought some from Uline, some different colored trash can bins for like based on the material color group. So like
Yeah.
yellow, green, and blue, and then you can put your chips in those. And then whenever you get a full 55-gallon trash can, then you could stick it in your truck and drive it to the recycle and get some money back. But because of all the different exotic materials you do, I might also do like a 5-gallon bucket for like titanium or brass or something like that, because those would be worth a lot as well.
Yep, that's worth it. Man, with the Haas, like I always just mixed my chips because that thing was such a pain to clean out. With the Tormach, it's got full wash down plus a coolant hose, and it's like a dream to clean it out. Every time I do a part or a run of parts, it is pristine in there afterwards, and it is so nice.
Yep.
I can't believe the luxuries on this machine. Though I do regret not getting the chip conveyor because the chip bins are not that large. And if you let them overfill with fine chips specifically, you can end up with a situation where you kind of like the gutter guard thing where the coolant will hit the pile of chips and then like run down the backside and then flow out. I've done that to myself once. And with coarse chips, like aluminum chips, it seems to be fine. But when you're doing smaller cuts, like I was with some of these steel with the high feed strategy, the chips were kind of denser and the coolant didn't seem to flow through it as well.
Yeah. What about through spindle coolant? Did you get that option?
I did not get that option. When I put together the quote for the machine, none of these things were available yet. I don't think I'll miss the through spindle coolant with the parts I do.
Yeah, you probably won't.
but the chip conveyor, I think, is going to be a very soon upgrade.
If you start recycling a lot of chips, and especially with how easy that one is to clean out comparatively, you will never go back. Once you have a chip conveyor, you'll want it on everything.
Ooh, I wonder if I can
So,
just get 55-gallon drums for cheap.
oh yeah,
Though, I'm not going to get I don't think I'll be able to get a 55-gallon drum of chips into my truck. Unless I store them in the truck.
that was my next question is, do you have like a cherry picker or something you could pick them up with to load them
Not
into your
at the
truck?
moment. My neighbor has a tractor that doesn't work. That's as close as I've got. I've got a zero-turn lawnmower.
Here's the thought. Could you build something outside that's like a pedestal that you could go dump, that you could keep your chips on, that's at the level that you could just roll it into your bed of your pickup if you backed up to it? But you would just go and just empty out, like you could have a smaller bucket that you would just fill your chips up with, and then you go dump them outside, and then you can back your truck up to it, and then you're not going vertical, you're just shifting it over.
There's probably something like that. Or maybe one of those like hydraulic tables. I don't know.
Yeah, something along those lines. That could work.
Ooh, here's a fun fact that I did not know about the machine. There is an option to add on a webcam inside the machine.
Mm-hmm.
The option is actually for a second webcam, and it comes with a webcam in the column of the machine looking directly at the tool.
Yeah, I did know that one. That's pretty cool.
I thought that was the one that was an add-on.
Yeah.
Where is the chip conveyor on their website? I'm trying to see how much that
Have they released it yet? Or was it still...
Maybe not. I thought they had. But that could explain why I'm not seeing it here.
How many coolant pumps does that one have?
Currently, I have 2. I have a half horse for the washdown and a quarter horse for the not washdown.
Do you have, for your flood, is it more flow than the 1100 as well?
Oh yeah.
A lot more flow?
It is significant. Yeah, it is perfectly fine.
Nice.
So
I was using... Oh, go ahead.
I'd say it has a washdown right on the Z or the Y-axis way covers too, so you never get chips build up there, which is really nice.
So on our Doosan, it did not come with a washdown nozzle.
Okay.
For like cleaning out the machine, and we asked the whenever we were getting our Doosan spec'd out, it was like a $3,000 add-on to get that. And the techs or the guys were like, just buy some stuff, hardware at Lowe's, and put your own garden hose on it. Yeah. So that's what we did last week. And the Doosan has both a lot more pressure and a lot more volume than any washdown hose I've ever. So it's a pressure washer, is what it is. It was insane. Like it's too much. It's too much for garden hose, honestly. And I would leave the valve open and have all the nozzles going and still have 10 times the pressure than what I have over at the Haas in terms of water flow. It is actually insane. I think the flood coolant is probably an 80 psi or 140 psi pump for your flood. It's way too high for like washing stuff down. I want to find a way to throttle it back.
Yeah.
But
you could probably put some sort of restrictor in there.
Yeah. But it's nice. It's significantly easier to wash it down. And I somewhat understand why they don't have that option as standard with the pumps they're using.
That's fair.
So it somewhat makes sense now. But I still prefer having it because it's much easier to clean the machine out. Without it, it's kind of a pain.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, the cleaning out this machine versus the Haas is night and day. Like, I used to get comments on YouTube videos on the Haas like, you need to clean that thing out. Why is your machine so dirty? And it's like, well, now I understand. You guys have been using the hose and everything to keep your machine clean. I haven't had that luxury.
Yeah, you don't have any kind of a wash down with the OM, do you?
Nope. The best I can do is move around the lock line, the coolant nozzle. Just move it around. And the pump in that thing is super anemic too.
Oh. You couldn't add like a T to your pump and to your flood and just close off a valve and have it as a washdown. That's kind of what we're doing on the Doosan.
I'm sure you could, but again, that pump is so anemic.
Yeah.
I don't even think it's an eighth horsepower.
Hmm.
It's probably like a tenth or something.
Hmm. What about so on the Tormach side? Do you have to close the valve to use a washdown? Did it come with an actual washdown
It came
nozzle?
with an actual washdown nozzle,
Because the
like
1100
plumbed
didn't.
up and everything.
Because we had to add our own.
Yep. And to answer your question, yes, there is a valve on the side of the head of the machine.
Gotcha. And that only closes the upper nozzles. You still have the nozzles hitting the y-axis covers,
Correct.
right?
Which I think
Yeah.
does actually sap a lot of the coolant pressure. But it kind of helps flush the chips down anyway, so it's helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. And see, that's how the Haas is. It has that y-axis cover. And I kind of approximate that with the Doosan. It just has so much more flow because I cannot close the valves all the way. I did that the first time, and the gun about flew out of my hands because it was so much pressure and I wasn't prepared. But yeah, I don't close the valve all the way anymore.
And I also have the MQL, which is nice for
Oh
filming.
yeah, that is
So,
nice.
and it's better than the old MQL, where it's got a really fine control for the oil dose, and it's very
Mm-hmm.
like the old MQL system was like nothing, 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 and then like full blast as you turn the knob. And on this one, it's a very, very fine control. And it has like a little piston that goes in and out. It kind of sounds like not a respirator, but the machines that help you breathe.
Yeah,
A
yeah.
ventilator. It
See,
sounds like a ventilator or
like
Darth
yeah,
Vader
ventilator.
almost.
Yeah,
And you see this little piston going in and out, and that controls your flow. And then you adjust the time in seconds for the cycle. So you can have it cycle
gotcha,
like once every 5 seconds or up to every 30 seconds or something like that. And it's
gotcha.
a slowly metering the oil. And so that's been really nice too.
Hmm. Nice. Trying to think of what else is going on. Anything else going on in your world?
Yeah. So there was one more big announcement that I can make
Okay,
as of today. I accepted a job.
you accepted a job.
I'm following in your footsteps, Harrison. I took a part-time teaching job at a
Nice.
well, I keep trying to call it a local university. It's actually not a local university. It is a extension campus of a local university. The
Gotcha.
university itself is hours and hours away, but
But yeah, but I, I think yours is going to be a lot more involved than mine was, from the sound of things.
interesting. It's interesting you think it's more involved because I kind of think of it as less involved, but I don't know,
Well,
maybe.
I was teaching a class twice a week, or I am teaching a class twice a week, and I only have like 5 to 10 students at any given time. And I have one machine, which is the mini mill, and then a Bridgeport manual, and then 3 lathes that are manual Grizzlies. And it's very unstructured and chill. And the students, like, I kind of go at the pace of the students, and they don't have the drive and motivation most of the time to really do anything outside of the class. So it's a very slow process. And so by the time we're done, they've machined 2 or 3 parts, if that. And so they're not doing it for their degrees, they're doing it as an elective. Versus what it sounded like yours is going to be more along the lines of like actually teaching people that are going to go into industry to do this, which you're going to have a much higher standard you're going to need to get them up to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yes and no, and we'll get to that. It definitely sounds like we're better equipped than you are. I have
Oh, for
like
sure.
6 VF2s and a couple of mini mills and I think 6 ST10s. It might be 4 ST10s.
Do you have some
Um,
5-axis machines?
so the 5 axis machines are not part of the school, but it is attached to our HFO,
Okay.
the Haas HFO, and so that's where the UMCs are. They also have like a DC1. So I probably won't get to play on those, unfortunately. I was a little bit lied to about that. I was told I would get to play on the 5-axis. I don't think I'm going to get to play on the 5-axis.
Mm.
But they are there in the building.
You get to look at them.
Yeah. They also have a whole room full of grinders, and then a whole, 10 manual mills and probably 10 manual lathes or so, plus an inspection room.
Gotcha.
But so you teach traditional students. I will be teaching the non-traditional students.
Yeah.
So, and it'll vary depending on like who's sending the students. So this first class that I'm going to be doing is actually with the Department of Corrections. So it is people who are in, prison at the moment, and they're doing some like a job skills class while they're in there. And this first class is basically just like know how to work in manufacturing and become a machine operator. So like they're not doing any machine programming. They're not really doing any setup work. They're reading, it's like reading calipers and micrometers. We will be teaching them how to run manual machines. And other than that, it's pretty much just loading parts on the CNC. So it'll be my programs that they're running. And then they'll measure the parts when they come off.
From a time commitment standpoint, how many hours a week do you think it's going to take up of your week?
So it'll vary. So some weeks it'll be nothing. Some weeks, like for this Department of Corrections class, that's the most time intensive one. That is like a couple weeks in a row of 20 hours a week.
Okay.
So that will actually be like a pretty significant time commitment. Most of the time it'll be like, 1 6-hour class a week, or, a couple 4-hour classes in a month. Like, I think it'll probably average out to about the same as you because of the longer like Departments of Correction classes. Other than those classes that will come up, once, twice, 3 times a year, it will be for the most part less.
Gotcha.
So
what about, are you paid? Is it like where you're on the payroll, like a salary deal, or is it like you clock in, clock out type?
Traditional clock in, clock out.
Okay.
So it's not paid per contact hour, per class hour, like a normal professorship.
Yeah, that's how ours is. And, it sounds like it's a lot per hour whenever you kind of look at like, oh, I'm getting, X amount of dollars per hour to teach, or per class hour. But like when you actually like add in how much time it takes you, I mean, it's better than minimum wage, but it's not like rolling in dough type stuff.
Yep.
Like for the amount of hours I put in, I probably put in 8 hours, 6 to 8 hours a week. Or no, I don't put in that many. I put 6 to 8 hours every 2 weeks, and I get paid every 2 weeks. And so it comes out to, what is it? I'm going to run some numbers real quick. Calculator math on a podcast. It comes out to like $20 an hour or so.
Okay.
Which is not bad, but it's not like, woohoo, it's not like amazing. It's like I could make in a couple hours if I'm like doing really good at the shop type work, and it's like it's a lot less effort for the amount of money that I can make at the shop. But
yeah, for like the weeks where I'm doing a lot of hours. So, some weeks will be like 20 hours a week with the Department of Corrections stuff. I see those as like almost a little bit of a vacation from the job shop grind, because it'll cover about 50% of the income that I need. Actually, probably a little bit more, because my numbers are all based on a gross, not net. And there's no expenses for so I don't know, it'll probably cover like 75% of what I need. And then I can just kind of lazily do the other 25%. Or I could just, maybe have a slow week where I, don't quite get as much as I normally would. And, job shop stuff is stressful, and being able to take a step back and like work on some improvement sometimes, or just like be able to spend time with your family is like, it's a luxury.
There's some
And
value
maybe
in
I'm
that for
biased
sure.
after this death week, after the stupid parts. I did.
Yeah.
I don't think I said this. I did 2 overnighters, 2 all-nighters to get those parts done.
Oh man.
So yeah, I worked like probably literally 100 hours to make negative $200.
That's tough.
It was it was bad.
Thankfully, I haven't really lost money in all of my struggles. I've just lost time.
Yeah.
So I haven't lost any opportunity or jobs, but I do make significantly less just because of my time. But make of that as what you will.
I mean, honestly, that job was a cheap education. Like,
Yep.
I've learned a lot of lessons. This brings up a topic. Tool holders. What do you like?
For just like
I mean,
brand
stuff bigger than an eighth, an eighth inch.
I would say I probably use ER16 the most, and then ER25, and very little ER32.
Okay. To be fair, before I started this project, I think even when I was like ordering stuff for this machine, I was asking you about like tool holders and collets and stuff. And I was like, I'm just going to get ER16 for everything. And you're like, I like ER25. That's a great size for stuff like
Yeah.
1/2 inch and 3/8 inch tools. And
Yeah.
that's exactly what I did not do and exactly what I should have done, because those are the tools that bit me.
Yep.
So
Yeah. So like I will run some 3/8 in ER16s, but usually they are finishers and not roughers.
okay,
Usually
fair.
anything that's roughing that's 3/8, I will stick in an ER25. Anything that is finishing 3/8, I will stick it in either or. I usually stick it in an ER16 because of clearances for the 5-axis. And so the 5-axis drives me to ER16s more than anything else.
That makes sense.
And so, in fact, today I have a job coming up. I actually got some ER11 extensions for Haas because I've got some parts coming up that have some drilled and tapped holes, and they're like 3 inches down, but they're right next to the side of the part, and I have like 40 thou off the wall of the part that I need to drill and tap. Or not 40 thou, 400 thou, so 0.4
Okay.
off the side of the wall of like a 4-inch, 3-inch drop that I need to drill and tap. And so we got some extensions that I'm going to stick in an ER32 to be able to drill, tap, and chamfer.
What are your opinions on heat shrink and hydraulic?
I haven't used heat shrink. And my thought on that is that I like the idea of heat shrink, but you have to buy a machine. And if I'm going to buy a machine, I'm going to buy a RegoFix. Because if it's what, like $5,000 for a heat shrink or $10,000 for the RegoFix, and I don't really want to invest in a heat shrink system because my ultimate goal is to go RegoFix. Hydraulic, I've used a little since I've gotten the Doosan, and honestly, I haven't noticed a bigger difference other than less chance of pullout. Like in terms of like rigidity, it almost, the particular hydraulic holders that I've used, they've almost been less forgiving than the ER collets.
Interesting.
And I don't know why.
I've always heard they're better at dampening.
I now it could be because my spindle is dying that maybe I'm not seeing that it's putting, because it's more rigid, it's putting more of a load on the spindle, and so the vibrations are making it worse, versus the ironic looser collets actually makes that problem less noticeable. So it could be kind of a reverse psychology thing, because the hydraulic holder that I'm using is the same one that basically broke my spindle, and so I haven't really. I've only had 1 inch of cut where it was actually working properly. And after that, my spindle broke. So
I've been considering both. My current thought is actually to go shrink fit. And the reason for that is like, excuse me. Yes, you have that initial startup costs of something to, put tools in and out of the tool holders. But with hydraulic, it's like, but the tool holders are like half the price of hydraulic tool holders. And so like it's a higher startup cost, but that gets amortized, on all tool holders that you buy going forwards.
So
whereas hydraulic just gets more and more expensive.
Why are you wanting to go hydraulic or shrink fit?
Because I don't want tool pullout issues and I want better run out.
Okay. For tool pullout, I would say I'm running much larger machines than you with much more horsepower. And I can tell you that like I'm running a 1/2-inch tool in an ER25 at like a 90% spindle load without pullout.
Yeah.
So, and if you are really worried about pullout, you can get bearing ER collet nuts, which like double the torque that's going into them.
Yeah.
And so that's a much cheaper way to get around that problem than what you're talking about. In terms of run out, I 100% agree. However, it's a lot of money to spend if you've got other areas that you can throw that money at. And I'm speaking to myself as much as to you because I'm wanting to spend a lot of money to go to RegoFix, but there's a reason I haven't done it yet, and that's because I've had other more pressing issues that come up that are I get a much better return on investment. And so I don't want to see you jump to a more expensive system for a problem that you could easily solve with just a couple better ER collet systems.
Well, if I was going to start doing heat shrink, I would do the Serven Solutions, stick one of those handheld induction coil things on a rail.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking there.
Yeah.
So yes, in no world was I going to buy a $5,000 heat shrink machine.
Yeah. And doing that, it could be fine. I don't know. It seems like there could be some potential problems with that, but I don't know. So I can't be an authority on that situation. I can only speak from my experience and what I think makes the most sense. So in that case, go ahead.
Say the other reason why I like heat shrink is sorry, there seems to be the least amount of variables with it. Even with like an ER collet, you have the tool holder, you have how clean the tool holder is, you have the ER collet, how good of shape the ER collet is, how clean the collet is, and then you have the nut. Is the nut in good shape? Is the nut clean? And how tight do you tighten it? And like those are all variables. And yes, you can control for them. You can make sure you're cleaning. But with heat shrink, it's basically, I guess, how clean is the holder, how clean is the tool, and I guess the length, which would also be an ER thing. But for automation, it just seems like it would be the most consistent.
For sure. Well, I don't know about... Yes, it'd be far more consistent than ER collets, for sure. It just depends on how much automation you get into.
I mean, my plan is to, from cam, hit, go, receive, finished part.
Yeah.
So,
but I would say you're well. Are you talking about automation in terms of like a robot, or just you automatically programming and just loading a material and hitting go? Because you can get very reliable feed and speed processes and use wear comp and get you have to dial in each tool, and your tool life might not be as consistent, But if you're manually loading it and unloading it, if you have a broken tool or something like that, you're not going to make thousands of parts of scrap.
My plan is to have a robot on that Tormach in 2025.
Yeah.
Not for high volume stuff. I want to automate onesie twosies. That's my goal.
Yeah.
So, and I'm just trying to eliminate as many variables as possible. And if I can standardize on, basically everything is in a heat shrink holder, except maybe like drills or something. It just seems like the most simple one to set a process in place for, and it's cheaper than I don't want to buy 500 I don't want to buy 50 hydraulic tool holders, but the heat shrink ones are cheaper. I don't know.
If you were to do something, that would probably be the best in terms of what you're and in terms of the plans that you're working on right now. That makes the most sense.
Okay.
So I would agree with you in that point.
It's on my list. First thing I need to figure out is a Roa. I need to get a pneumatic base for that because that's kind of the foundation for the robot.
Yeah.
And then I need to get speeds and feeds dialed on the new machine. I need to make sure coolant and chips is dialed. Programming won't be that bad. Let's see what's left. So programming, chips and coolant, work holding, tool holders. Is there anything else you would want checked, like any boxes that you would want checked before spending the money on the robot? Oh, inspection, I suppose, but that's off the machine.
So tool holders, work holding, robot.
Yeah, I think those are all the ingredients.
Chip management.
Yeah, chip management is on my list. I'm gonna need that conveyor.
Yeah,
I thought it would be fine without it, but I'm gonna need that conveyor.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna need that, but like I said, I think you can get by without it for a while, but it'll definitely need to happen as you get your processes done. I mean, it's continuous improvement.
Yeah,
it's just how we are. You always are striving to do better today than you did yesterday, and hopefully, when you get to the point where you're ready to spend the money on a system, you can do it. I guess this is my biggest thing, is whenever I'm going to jump into a system, I don't want to jerry rig it. I want to make a system that if I am going for repeatability and consistency, I want to invest in a system that's going to give me that rather than experimenting and coming up with something that's introduces inconsistencies that wouldn't be there if done properly. That's the biggest reason I have against heat shrinking my own solution without using a proper machine.
That's fair.
Because I don't know what type of inconsistencies you could get doing it the other way.
I mean, there's people that do it with like propane torches. Can't be that bad. But actually, you're right. When it comes down to it, something like a hydraulic holder might actually be more consistent. With the exception that you are just throwing in you're adding a collet to the loop. I guess depending on the type of hydraulic holder. Some have collets, some don't.
And here's what I would say.
Freaky Climber says there's heat shrink ER collets.
I don't know what that means.
Not a bad. You know, like that slitting saw I have that's like basically an ER collet, but it's got a slitting saw hanging off the end. You can get heat shrink of those too.
Oh, that's cool.
Those are cool. Heimer has some and his car does, he says.
I wonder how you heat shrink those on or off. Does those also require a machine, or is there like a small thing for something like that?
I mean, I imagine heat shrink is heat shrink.
Could be.
I know
they have a lot of different profiles, so I always wonder how they do that.
I know one of the problems Cerven had was the rate at which you were putting heat into the tool holder. And if you couldn't put enough heat in, the tool would start to get hot and expand with the tool holder, which kind of defeats the purpose. I am just assuming with smaller tools that will be less of an issue. But I mean, I can do tests. Like I can get a working system. I can get, 2 tool holders and the inductive heater thing for like $400 and do some tests.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't
Yeah.
work, then I'm out $400. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, it could be worth it for sure. So, thinking about it, if I was to do it like that, I'd probably want to have a way to hold the tool holders upside down and heat it. That way the tool would drop out on its own as soon as it got
that's
loose.
true. That would, for when you're unloading them.
Yeah. So like have like a basket with a cloth or something that they can drop down into safely, or rag. Hold them upside down, heat them up, something like that. But
And Freaky Climber adds, don't put the tool near the holder until it's hot enough that you can put the tool in, or you need to check if it's hot enough. Which makes sense, but I don't know.
Do those have like a set screw that you drop them in, or do you just have to?
No idea. I know nothing.
Okay. But I always wondered how you adjusted the stick out in them. I think I did see one guy on Instagram who got like one of those, what you call it, like whenever you're trying to pin, like if you have a pin in like a tractor and you have those removable pins.
Yeah.
What are they? I forget what those things are called.
Like one of the induction, they're like a bolt buster or something like that. The little induction coils on a stick.
No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like how to do the length of your tool after you've heated it up.
Okay.
Like in the RC world, they're the you use them to hold on like the body clips, but they're like a much larger version. Okay. It's like it's the straight round and then like a little bump and then a thing off to the side. Anyways,
like
those types of clips, huh?
Like a cotter pin?
Yeah, like a cotter pin kind of. And like I saw one guy that was using that. He just stuck it on the shank of his tool, and then when he heat shrinked it, he'd drop it in, and then it would catch it, and then he could pull it off after it cooled down.
That makes sense.
So, I thought that was kind of cool. So,
Freaky Climber agrees with us. Oh, we should do Patreon shout-outs. So this is our first episode where Patreons are listening to us live. Right now we have Freaky Climber in the chat. When we started off, we had like 8 people here, and apparently we've scared them all off. But if you want to be able to check out the shows live, I think that's a thing that we're going to start doing going forwards. And that is done via our Patreon Discord, which you get access at any paid tier on Patreon. You can also join as a free member. If you join as a free member, you get to participate in our sometimes weekly Q&A, which I did not do for this show. Sorry, guys. But
we can ask if there's any questions in the live chat.
Hey, Freaky Climber, do you have any questions in the live chat?
Is he the only one that I
He's the only one there right now.
Oh, he's the only one.
We had more people earlier, but I guess it got late for him or something.
Yeah, they all headed out.
Paid members also get early access to all of our episodes. For example, the 100th episode we have had recorded for 2 weeks, and all of our Patrons have had that, and you guys have not. So if you're interested in our Patreon, link down in the description. We will use that money to upgrade our equipment and stuff. So Harrison's webcam and lighting are next, and then we're going to do our microphones. And then after that, we might think about some sort of editing person or something. I don't know.
That'd be nice.
All right, so we do have one Patreon question. It is
phase
converters?
Yeah. So I used a phase converter in my old shop, and I think we used, what was it, American Rotary?
What
American
everybody
Rotary
uses?
Yeah. And it went pretty good. I mean, it was really nice to use, super easy to set up. I basically did all the electrical work myself, and then I ran the wires to the machine. I wired up the phase converter. Make sure you double and triple check if you do that yourself to make sure you got everything wired correctly. I wired it up wrong the first time, but I didn't turn it on. And so when I was double checking everything before I locked up the box, I found out that 2 wires were in the wrong spots, and I switched them around. And so, but it ended up working. And the only thing I had the electricians do was connect it to the actual box and to just kind of look over my work. And so That worked great. You got to make sure, depending on what you're doing, that the phase converter you get is rated for the type of load, both in terms of amps and in terms of frequency generation. So, like, some phase converters are like digital and they don't produce a full sine wave. They're kind of imitating a sine wave, and that can sometimes cause havoc with electronics,
Yeah.
which is why our rotary that we got, it it actually had the motor on the ground that would actually generate the third leg, and it would generate an actual sine wave. Um, and so it was a little more expensive, but it gave you much cleaner power. So
Yeah. So suggestion on brand is basically everybody uses, oh, what are they called? Your brand?
American Rotary.
Yeah, everybody uses American Rotary, and I don't know, they're
There,
probably good.
there was another brand that I can't remember.
Phase Perfect.
Face, it might have been Face Perfect. Do they have the white boxes?
I don't know. I think
Uh,
Phase Perfect, they're digital ones, but they have like a big box of capacitors in them or something to smooth out the power.
yeah, that could be.
Or I'm
Um,
just combining things in my head and I don't know what I'm talking about because I
yeah,
don't know what I'm talking about here.
but yeah, so we used the American Rotary, and the weird thing about American Rotary was it was rated at 30. We got the 30 American Rotary 30 80 30 or something. Anyways, it was rated at 30 amps, but it was like after running for 2 minutes, it could go up to like 70 amps or something. It was
Hmm.
weird. And
Built up
so, like,
momentum in the motor.
yeah, something like that. And so, in theory, we could have powered two machines off of it, even though we never did. So, which it's still at the old shop. And I think Dad's going to end up using it. I think he's going to put in a manual lathe or Bridgeport at some point, and he's
Nice.
going to have that three-phase power. So he's like, "You leave that here, boys." So we're like, "We don't need it anymore, so that's fine." So
Well, my voice is starting to die on me here. Do you have anything else?
not really. I mean, other than like the crappy weeks turning into somewhat of a positive here recently, we're just trying to do a lot of improvements around the shop as well. So for our laser room, we had a air box next to the laser to catch the dust as it was coming off of it,
Mm-hmm.
and it would fill up the filters so fast if you were running like a decent amount of stuff through it, and like you'd have to take them out and like beat them outside or try to blow them off or try to clean them out in some way, shape, or form. And we we got sick and tired of that. And so in the new shop, whenever we were building it up, there was a vent in the ceiling for venting out the natural gas, and we ended up moving the whole air system over, so we still had that. And so our intention has always been to plumb up the laser dust to go out that vent instead of
That's what
staying
mine
inside the
does.
shop. And we haven't done it yet, but dad got a fan, like a duct fan,
Mm-hmm.
and we got everything hooked up to the machine. We just got to hook it up from the ceiling to the outside, and we just got the stuff in for that today. But whenever we did the first run down to the machine and we were using just the one motor that Dad had on there, it was so anemic. It was like not sucking out at all. And so
Was
Weston went on. Go ahead.
was it one of those that's like for a grow tent, or was it like a dryer one?
It's one that's like for like an air duct for like a
Yeah,
house, like moving air around.
those are like 100 CFM or something, and that's
Well,
questionable.
it was an 8 inch, 8 or 10 inch ducted fan, and it claimed 1200 CFM,
Oh,
and
okay.
we have it restricted down to 2 inches at the very end.
Oh, okay. They
And
do
so
zero head pressure.
exactly, that's the problem. It had zero head pressure, and so like I told Weston, I was like, let's go on Amazon, let's find something that has a little more head pressure in it, and we got one, and I don't have it connected to the system yet. I just held it up to the other fan and just put it in series. And I was like, all right, Weston, turn it on. Let's see what this does. And Weston's like, it sucked my hand into the hose.
Yeah.
So it's significantly more powerful.
Was that one of those that's for like a grow tent?
It might be. It
Okay.
like the front end almost looks like a jet engine. It's got like a cowl that like directs the air in. Like it almost looks like it's like a front end of like a jet engine style.
Okay, it's not quite what mine looks like.
But it is. It's the same CFM rating as the other one. It just is like 4 times the wattage.
Yeah.
So
for my laser, which is a little bit of a different animal because it's an enclosed CO2, but I have I think it's a 3200 SFM fan in there. And it's again, it's one of those that's designed for a grow tent. But it's 8 inches. It's 8-inch tube from the laser all the way outside.
Is it a centrifugal or is it inline?
It's an inline.
Okay.
It's just a big old inline. Is yours centrifugal?
No, it's inline.
Okay. Yeah.
So, but we're going to try to get that connected up soon. And I think it's going to make a big difference because like you'll just start coughing and hacking because it's not doing a good enough job filtering.
Yep. Yeah. So, I can't imagine having an unenclosed laser. And again, it's a little bit of a different animal than a CO2 laser, but.
Yeah. But I mean, Weston has over, I think around 100 tumblers to engrave.
Mm-hmm.
And that produces a lot of dust.
Oh, yeah, because you're burning powder coating, basically, right?
Yeah.
Well, I guess depending if it's powder coated or a naked tumbler.
It's powder coated.
Yeah.
So we're taking all that off, and that stuff just coats your lungs if you don't have good filtration, which is not good. So I don't want to be like a smoker.
Yep.
With lung problems.
I have a HEPA filter in my shop too that I turn on, if I need it.
We've talked about getting they got these ceiling mounted HEPA filter deals you can stick in your shop.
Yep.
Yeah, I want to get.
They're like for woodworkers.
Yeah, I want to get a couple of those for our shop too.
It does not help with the coolant mist, but like when I was getting ready for the Tormach, I was moving, anything and everything around, trying like rearranging the whole shop. And I put a lot of dust in the air and I was sneezing and coughing. And, I have bad allergies to begin with. Like, people always comment about my raccoon eyes thinking I don't get any sleep, but that's actually most of the time from allergies and just like years and years of constant bad allergies.
Gotcha.
But so yeah, anything like if I'm, moving the boxes, they're above my shipping station or whatever, like I'll start coughing and sneezing and it'll last me like a day because my allergies are so bad. So I like having that air filtration is really nice. I do need a mist collector for the Tormach, especially if I'm going to use the MQL coolant because that still does make a mist.
Yeah. Both my machines need mist coolant systems on them, some mist collectors at some point.
Tormach has them, and they're like the cheapest place you're going to get them too. Yeah. So I might buy 2.
But, it just depends on how much volume those do. So.
Yeah. I'm sure it's smaller than something you'd put on a VF6, but.
Yeah. I need a VF3.
Yeah.
And a 5100L Doosan. But
here's a fun fact for you. When it's all assembled, at least in terms of width, the 1500 is smaller than the 1100.
Oh, really?
Because the enclosure is so much more compact.
Interesting.
Now it's a lot deeper, but
now does that mean it gets a lot closer to the windows then? The tables?
Yes.
Yeah. And does it still have that big box hanging out the one side?
No.
For the motor? Oh, really?
I mean, now I'm doubting myself, but I don't think so.
Interesting.
I don't think it does.
You have to go look at it and let me know.
Yeah, because now I'm going, where's the motor?
Anyway, you see it on Tormach's website?
That's what I'm going for. It's definitely a much more compact machine than the 1100. It's a different machine. Like when it comes down to it, like it's like it's from a different company.
Philosophy. Yeah.
Yep. The sheet metal was way better designed. and higher quality. Like getting it all put together was not a big issue. There was 2 or 3 places where I found loose screws or loose fittings. I would say that was the number one quality issue with the machine. Is there was a oil fitting that I had to tighten up, and the screws on the ATC. So, in terms of quality control, that's what they need to work on, is tightening screws. But everything else has been fantastic.
Yeah. From what I can see of their little 3D, yeah, it's not sticking out nearly as far.
Yeah. And throughout the whole process, I was like texting them and being like, this isn't clear in the instructions, or, I'm not a big fan of how this goes together, or stuff like that. So hopefully they'll be able to improve the instructions going forwards too. Like, for example, they don't ever tell you to plug in that webcam in the instructions. And I was like, you guys need to fix that. But
yeah. I do like that they have a cable chain that's going straight to the electrical box now. Looks like.
What did the other one do?
The other one does, but the chain was not actually on the box. It was going 90 degrees to the way this one is. And so you had all your cables coming out of your box, going down up to your column, and then going into the chain.
Yes. That makes sense.
So
I bet they had to do that to fit under 8-foot ceilings.
Could be.
Because if I had to guess, I would say the machine goes up to 96 inches, or 94 inches, 2 inches short of an 8-foot ceiling, which is about perfect in here because I have a little bit of the corrugated metal roofing takes up a little bit of space, and I think the trusses are right at 8 foot. One regret I do have is I bought I didn't buy. I ordered the windows. I actually wish I did not have the windows on the side.
Really?
Because they need more than 8-foot ceilings to open all the way. And if you don't have the windows, they just give you a panel, and you can unbolt the panel from the outside.
Interesting.
So that would have given me full access if I just unbolt the panel.
Unbolt it.
Yeah. But with the windows, they go up like 3 feet, and then there's like 2 feet left at the top. And it just makes accessing the ATC specifically rather awkward. And a couple assembly steps were rather awkward.
And you can't clip it onto anything, can you? Because that was my biggest problem with the windows in the old one, is that there was no way to really hold them up unless you bolted them.
They have little pins. No, they thought of this. They have little magnetic pins. And they even thought about the people with the 8-foot ceilings, because there is a setting on the pins where the windows are just barely below the ceiling. So you can lock it into place. They did think about this.
That's good.
But I wouldn't have gotten the windows again. I would have just gone with the solid panels.
Is the groove that they're riding in better than the 1100? Like the actual sliding motion?
Because on the 1100, they had like those little clampy things, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, this has an actual groove, and it has a piece of sheet metal that like kind of wraps around the bottom of the window with a handle. So you just kind of lift it up by the handle, stick in your 2 little magnets, and you're done.
Sweet.
So
that's nice. Yeah, this the more I hear about this machine, the more it kind of pisses me off, because it's the machine I wanted whenever I started.
Yes. It's a complete world of difference from the 1100.
It kind of ticks me off, if I'm honest.
That's fair.
In a good way. Like props to Tormach, but it's life.
Yep.
I'm glad they're improving.
It's also the easiest machine I've ever leveled because it's on 3 points.
Yeah, that is nice too.
They do say that you don't have to level it, but I went, and leveled it anyway.
Yeah, you still should.
Yeah. Even for consistent coolant flow, if nothing else.
Yeah, for sure. Chip evacuation.
I need to order a bunch of lock line and nozzles. I want to kind of custom arrange my washdown nozzles. Yeah. And I think this is actually something I could fix with how I assembled some of the sheet metal on the door. But there's a place where chips can build up behind the door that makes the door hard to open and close. And I have fixed that by just adding a nozzle that's aiming to the place where the chips would collect, and that's fine.
Does the door lock while you're running?
Yes.
Okay. Is that optional or is that mandatory now?
It is, as the machine is shipped, it is mandatory. It's like that. There are methods to avoid it if you so choose.
Mm-hmm.
But unless you're modifying something, it's mandatory.
Okay. Because like the old 1100 that we had, it was an optional extra you had to pay for to get the door switch.
Yes. Now it locks itself. There's a button to release it.
Does it lock every time you close it?
Yes.
Or only when a program's running?
Nope, whenever you close it.
I despise that with a passion. That's the one thing I love about my Haas is that the doors will lock, but only when the spindle's turning, basically. Otherwise, you could just open and close the doors anytime, even when the machine's off. On the Doosan, if you close the doors, it locks, and you're just you got to push that button every single time. I hate it.
That would be nice. The only time it has ever annoyed me is you cannot open the door if the machine is an e-stop.
Yeah.
Because it cuts off the 24-volt power to the switch. And it's like, well, let me rephrase that. You can, but you have to there's a manual override. You have to stick your finger up into a hole that you can't see and flip a little switch. It's annoying, but so there's no convenient way of opening the doors with the e-stop on.
Wait, I think I saw this. Isn't the switch to open the doors kind of right next, isn't there a button in the paneling right next to the door handle?
Yes, it's next to the handle.
Okay, that would be less annoying than the way it is on the Doosan. Because it's on the control panel, so you have to
oh, that is super annoying.
So you got two handles over here, so you got to reach over and click a button, and then you can open the panels.
No, it is right next to the handle, and when you press the handle, it pops the door open, a half inch or whatever.
Okay, then that's not that wouldn't really bother me. If I grabbed onto the Doosan handles and there was a button, and when I went to open it, I pushed that button and then it opened. That wouldn't be bad.
That doesn't bother me at all. It bothers me a little bit that the door has to be closed for probing. That does bother me.
Yeah, that bothers me too.
Yeah.
That's there's certain operations that I liked on the Tormach. I could just keep the doors open and just keep using the machine.
There's ways around it.
There is. I need to make some ways around it on my Doosan. Because whenever you're washing down, I would like to have the augers and the conveyor running while I'm spraying it all down. And the doors have to be closed for that.
That makes
Should
sense.
be.
Yeah.
When I'm done. So.
All right. Well, my voice is actually dying, so.
All right, guys. Thanks for actually physically hanging out with us this time. Some of you. So.
One of you.
One of you right now, but hey, we had a couple in the beginning.
Is he gone? No, he's still here. Okay.
No, he's still here. We're coming to the end of the podcast, and yeah, it's been a lot here recently, and hopefully you've learned, you're listening to our experiences, and hopefully you can relate. That's the best way I can put it. So anyways, guys, thanks for hanging out. This has been Harrison with Precision Ingenuity signing out with AJ from Audacity Micro. Look forward to catching up with you next week, AJ.
Bye.